John tells us in the bosom of the Father, he's not saying that he was in the bosom of the Father and that in his state of incarnation he was not in the bosom of the Father. That's not what John is saying. But there was a real something that occurred in the incarnation in which from the very moment of his birth until his death, there was a great difference. And we'll go on to talk about that later on when we talk about the incarnation. He had never been except in this bosom of the Father, and then to become a man. And that's what makes it so remarkable. Something that we need to understand is people kind of have the idea sometimes that everything was absolutely splendid for Christ in the incarnation up till the cross. That's not true. When He took upon Himself human flesh, He took upon Himself the consequences of that flesh. I have seen books and Christian novels and heard preaching where it seemed that the preacher supposed that Christ walked on this earth. Or first of all, they supposed that Adam was some sort of Superman, which we don't know, but it's presumption, at the least, to suppose he was some sort of Superman who could fly and he's super strong and, all these different things. But a lot of people will assume that when Jesus came, since He had not sinned, He was not sinful, He knew not corruption, that even in His incarnate state He was perfect, they assume that He came to this earth and was just like when Adam was made before the fall. That's not true. They assume, when Jesus came, He was like Adam before the fall. No, He wasn't. He came in the likeness of sinful flesh. He was not sinful. He did not sin, but in His body He bore the consequences of our fallenness. He became tired. He became thirsty. It wasn't that He walked around in this perfect human body that knew no frailty, as in before the fall. But He took upon the state of Adam after the fall. Consider again the purity of that delight with which the blessed Father and Son embraced each other. The best creature delights one in another, are mixed, debased, alloyed. If there be something ravishing, engaging, there is also something cloying and distasting. What he's simply saying is, how can we understand this relationship between the Father and the Son when even our greatest and most pure relationships are alloyed and mixed with both good and bad, darkness and light, pleasantries and pains? The purer any delight is, the more excellent. Now there is no crystal streams flowing so purely from the fountain, no beams of light so unmixed from the sun, as the loves and delight of these holy and glorious persons. The holy, holy, holy Father embraced the thrice holy Son with a most holy delight and love. You ever had a really good day with your wife? I mean a really good day. And you go, whoa, that was something. That was so different than other days. That was fantastic. Well, even that was darkness compared to the relationship between the Father and the Son. Because they are perfect persons, their relationship was perfect. Consider the constancy of this delight It was from everlasting and from eternity. It never suffered one moment's interruption. The overflowing fountain of God's delights and love never stopped its course, never ebbed. But as He speaks in the text, I was daily His delight, rejoicing always before Him, Proverbs 8:30. Once more, consider the fullness of that delight, the perfection of that pleasure. You say, boy, you're spending a lot of time on this. A lot of time? 2 hours is a lot of time to just try to attempt to understand a relationship that was and is eternal. You see, here's the thing. One doctrine leads to another. One understanding profits another desire to comprehend. Now, what do I mean by that? Are you excited about this relationship for the sake of the Son? If you are, great. If you're not, then be excited about it for your own sake. Why? This is what awaits you. Because the Son became incarnate, this is what awaits you. Oh, now you're more interested? That's what's so glorious and marvelous about this. He didn't lose all of this for that time in order to bring us to heaven to have some inferior relationship with the Father. The Father loves us as He loves His Son. We have been made co-heirs. This is what awaits the believer. I praise God for the imperfect Dr. Piper. I don't really know where we'd be right now. This resurgence of Reformed theology without Edwards. I think it would be much colder than it is. Much more calculating. Much more civil, respectable, and dead. And then all of a sudden, here you have Edwards bursting forth. And a tiny man from Minneapolis. And he's talking about rapture and delight and joy unspeakable. Not respectability. But unhindered, unfettered, beyond your imagination, joy unspeakable. I think it's amazing. I think it's in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in the book. It is definitely in Chronicles of Narnia. Because it's Bacchus comes and all these little elf-like creatures or whatever, Pan and them, they're dancing before Aslan. And their dancing is so wild, they say that it would have been frightening if Aslan had not been there. It was just so unfettered and wild and unhindered, and it would have been frightening. But Aslan was there. This is something you do not want to miss in Christianity. And I'm afraid in all our properness, I guess you could say, that we have forgotten this. The wildness and wonder and unfettered, ravishing joy that is in the presence of the Father. So I love it in the last book of the Chronicles of Narnia when they come there into heaven and there's this tree that is so beautiful, and one of them says that, one little animal says, I so desire to eat from that tree. Do you think it would be wrong for me to eat from that tree? And the other responded, I think we're finally in a place where nothing is wrong. The point that he's making is not that there's antinomianism or lawlessness in heaven. The point that he's making is you have been so changed. Your desires are so pure that you can now be governed by your desires. Whatever you want, you can have, because the only thing you're going to want is pure. Relationships totally unhindered, unfettered from the bondage of sin. Joy, rapturous delight. Let me give